Hi, I'm Jeff Womelsdorf, Vice President of Product Development with NovaSpace, and I am joined today by Miguel Alvarez, the NovaSpace CRO, and we are here to discuss kind of one of the interesting topics that's going through the industry right now, and that is the transition plan for the International Space Station. So, before we dive too far into it, we'll do some quick intros. My background is I was in the Marine Corps and served as a communications officer, and eventually found my way into the space industry by being the Marine Corps liaison for the National Security Space Institute. So I've kind of been doing space operations stuff here for the past 4 or 5 years with more of an education focus. So did a lot of instructing, course development, course management, that kind of stuff. And now for NovaSpace, I bridge the gap between educational effectiveness and our space subject matter expertise, and make sure that we're teaching all of our content that we offer in the most effective way possible. Miguel, over to you for your intro, and then we'll dive into the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the introduction there. Miguel Alvarez, have over 25 years of experience in the aviation and space industry. Through the Marine Corps, much like Jeff. I spent most of my time initially as an enlisted Marine working on aircraft as an avionics technician, and then transitioned over to become a helicopter pilot for the Marine Corps. Sometime in 2011, they decided to send me to the Naval Postgraduate School, where I picked up a couple masters in space operations and applied physics. And then continued my work supporting the Marine Corps space enterprise, and then retiring and working as a contractor supporting a few Air Force constellations at US Stratcom. And then now, obviously, as a content developer for NovaSpace. So I'm happy to be here, and glad to be talking about the International Space Station, its transition plan, and what the future holds for the space industry.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Miguel. I'm sure as a lot of the folks in the audience know, this is a very big topic for the industry right now. But for those of you that aren't familiar with it, I'll kind of give a brief overview of what we'll be talking about here over the next couple minutes during this live stream. So NASA is planning on transitioning the International Space Station from being the preeminent on-orbit research facility to essentially decommissioning it and moving their focus and their priorities over to the commercial section for LEO research. So over its lifetime, the ISS has made discoveries that have benefited humanity as well as space exploration. However, they're looking to kind of change focus and throw the ball over to the commercial industry's court to further the development of LEO research and manned spaceflight research. As kind of a trend over the past couple of years, especially, the relationship between government and commercial entities in the space industry has been shifting from government focus over to commercial focus. So this is just yet another example of an initiative where we're looking to commercialize space to accelerate the industry. So Miguel, could you please give us your insights on why the industry is getting so excited about this transition plan?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting time. And it's really, when you look at the relationship between government space and the commercial industry, it's a great case study in how government and the commercial industry can work together to do great things. You take NASA and its history and, its origins coming out of the Cold War, really, and sparking that innovation in order to, essentially beat at the time the Russians to space and eventually to the moon, and our success stories there. But now, as we move closer to the commercialization of space, we see that NASA is evolving in how it conducts its operations and what its purpose is. And you see the transition that is happening as it moves towards the science and exploration realm of space, and moving its other aspects, such as the management of the International Space Station, to the commercial sector. Yep. And the opportunities are going to be created by the commercial industry, establishing new markets and enabling those new markets. We're going to see an emergence in technology in the biosciences and the medical field, and on orbit manufacturing, and really in preparation to get us to the moon and to Mars.
So obviously NASA's not going to be out of the space game, out of sending astronauts to orbit. So their plan is to, instead of having a dedicated resource that they own like the ISS, they're going to be buying commercial space on these commercial LEO destinations, or CLDs as they're being called, so that they'll be able to work with these commercial entities to send their astronauts to on-orbit research facilities to do the same things that they were doing on ISS. And as they're doing this transition plan, it's going to just allow them to focus on different priorities. So, Miguel, can you please elaborate on why this concept of purchasing astronaut space on these CLDs is going to revolutionize not only LEO, but could set us up for lunar exploration and even exploration beyond?
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever you commercialize an industry or a product or whatever the case may be, the purpose of why we do something in space is going to shift, right? It's going to shift to these commercial companies that are going to have a vested interest in ensuring that essentially they make a profit, right? It's got to be profitable. They got to bring revenue into a company. So that's going to revolutionize the way we do things in space. It's going to allow NASA to solely focus on the science and exploration side of the house, and not so much on the development, on the manufacturing, on the business end of doing work in space, right? So that focus is going to be great for long-term science and exploration missions, and that commercial focus is going to spark not only future innovations in technology that are going to affect both Earth-based and interplanetary markets, but also it's going to be the first logical step that's really going to get everyday people like you and I to get used to working in and out of the space environment, something that hasn't been done before because it's only been limited to NASA astronauts and mission specialists. Now we're going to see this reemergence of essentially everyday people, not just engineers, not just rocket scientists, not just astronauts, but everyday people that are going to go up to space and do stuff, which is going to be a great thing for humanity.
It sure will. Yeah, it's going to be an exciting next couple of decades for sure as this transition plan matures and we're getting more and more commercial assets on orbit. So yeah, it's very exciting to think about.
And by the way, one thing that I failed to mention, but this could provide, being that commercial entities are going to have a vested interest in protecting the assets that they build in low Earth orbit, I would imagine that there's going to be a market now to really clean up that LEO debris field, right? Because now, for insurance purposes, to obviously maintain the safety of passengers on board these commercial space stations, there is now a multinational capitalistic reason to invest in companies that are going to clean up LEO, something that government entities across the globe have been struggling to really implement.
Yeah, that's a great point. So that also kind of segues into a different portion of the transition plan, which talks about the disposal plan for the ISS. Can you kind of elaborate on why it's important to come up with a plan like that for an asset like the ISS, or really anything that's in LEO at the moment?
Yes, that's a great question. So one of the big topics, amongst all nations that are spacefaring is how to act responsibly in space. This is going to be a great model in not only NASA showing the world how to act responsibly in space, but we're gonna learn a lot about how to deorbit something so large in a responsible manner. As we all know, when there are collisions in LEO, or when nations act irresponsibly in LEO, it affects everybody else, not just your nation, but every nation that has assets in space. Absolutely. And as we commercialize space, it's going to get more crowded and more crowded and more crowded. So we need a great model and a great case study that other nations and other commercial companies can take and say, this is how we need to implement our deorbiting plans for our assets in the future.
Yeah, those are all great points. Responsible use of space. It's beneficial to everyone. So we've talked a little bit about some of the innovations that, or discoveries, research that have come about because of the ISS. One of the major things that really has set the stage for this transition to move off of the ISS and onto deep space exploration potentially is the developments in ECLSS technology. Would you mind talking about some of the innovations that have been discovered or developed on the ISS that have kind of led to the ability for humans to survive the hostile environment of space?
That's a great topic. And I'll start off by saying that there's a lot of skepticism among the public where they question the the um, the reason why millionaires and billionaires are investing so much in space. A lot of folks think that it's a waste of money, that those resources would be better used here on Earth to solve Earth's problems. And I understand the rationale of those concerns. However, there's also an education piece that needs to occur for the public in the sense that there have been a lot of research and development and innovations that have come from working in space and the work that NASA did on the International Space Station that have revolutionized people's lives here on Earth. And that's only going to continue and actually expand, I would say, exponentially as the commercial industry becomes invested in the operations that are going to happen in low Earth orbit and beyond. For example, the ISS was instrumental in reutilizing its water and resources on board the International Space Station because it is really expensive to resupply the space station. So they had to develop creative ways to essentially recycle their water and use it for other aspects. Same thing with the protection of their hardware, to protect it from radiation and micrometeorites and other debris that could hit the International Space Station. And that's going to be instrumental for developing new systems for deep space travel. And then, on the human side, the research that has been done on the International Space Station to understand the effects that the space environment has on the human body has been instrumental for the medical community in learning, one, how human beings have evolved here on Earth and how taking them into a different environment does affect their biology. And then finding ways to prevent some of the negative aspects of long-term space travel from occurring by understanding what those effects are on the human body. And then obviously, one of the big bullet points is the advancements that are going to occur from biotechnology companies, bioengineering companies going to low Earth orbit and developing new ways of manufacturing pharmaceuticals or new ways of growing tissue or even on-orbit manufacturing, something that could benefit future industries such as, interplanetary mining operations, right? All those things are going to be sparked by the industry that's going to grow in low Earth orbit.
Yeah, those are all great points. I think one of the points in the plan that I found most interesting was the part that speaks about NASA's goals through 2020, specifically with like microgravity research and research in the medical fields. And you mentioned it's going to only benefit humanity. They're doing research into pharmaceuticals, tissue growth effects to the human body. So, and all these discoveries are going to again lead to humanity exploring way past Leo. So it's very exciting. The next major section of the transition plan discusses the commercialization of Leo, which is very relevant to what we do here at NovaSpace with developing professional development programs for folks that are in the industry or looking to get into the industry. Can you explain kind of what the future job market might look like for the space industry?
Yes, that's a great question. So the industry is going to naturally change. It's no longer a job market for engineers, rocket scientists, and astronauts anymore. It's going to be a job market for everyone. We're going to have to implement a multidisciplinary approach to professionals working in and out of the space environment. In other words, we're going to have to have humanity, get used to working in and out of space, because if you really think about it from a logical point of view, if we're going to create communities in low Earth orbit, on the moon, in Mars, on the moons of other planets, those civilizations, those colonies aren't going to survive with just scientists and engineers. You're going to have folks from all walks of life, with education backgrounds from all sorts of disciplines to really contribute to the success of those civilizations outside of Earth. So you're going to need doctors, nurses, you're going to need psychologists, you're going to need sociologists, you're going to need tradespeople, you're going to need folks that understand how to weld something here on Earth and can maybe take those skills, or maybe an electrician, and take those skills and apply those to on-orbit manufacturing, or maybe even conducting maintenance on board these orbiting space stations, similar to what they would do here on Earth. Hospitality services. If you're going to have space tourism capsules on board these space stations, the folks that are going to pay for these trips, these vacations, they're going to expect a certain level of luxury. That's the best word I can think of. So folks are going to have the ability to work in space, and I think in our generation, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah. So for those people that you mentioned that don't either want or even need, because why would you get an advanced degree if you don't necessarily need one? What can they do right now to get into the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that Nova Space offers is that, we recognize that there's a gap between what's taught in traditional academic models, and the skills that are necessary to contribute to the industry. For example, a software engineer, when they graduate from, let's say, a top software engineering school, they don't necessarily know anything about the space environment. So even though they're highly sought after by the industry, once they get hired, it takes them some time to learn the skills necessary to apply their software engineering skills and take the knowledge of the space industry to create software for spacecraft, rocket launch systems, whatever the case may be. Now, in the old model where NASA was the only player in town, we could afford to put somebody through an on-the-job training program and have them spend a couple years to really learn the industry, and then they get to the point where they can really apply their profession and contribute to their specific projects and programs. In this competitive environment that we find ourselves in, that's just not going to cut it. We need something that provides that, let's call it 20-year knowledge base up front, so that they can now contribute to their teams faster and essentially increase the productivity of individual companies to do stuff in space. So essentially what Nova Space offers is that workforce development program for both individuals and organizations that bridges the gap between academia and those skills necessary for the industry.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. What we've put together at Nova Space is really unlike anything else that's out there on the market. So we really think that what we've created will only help foster innovation across the industry. The final thing that I wanted to end on, that the transition plan kind of ended on, was international cooperation. So that was it's a pillar of the ISS. I mean, it's the International Space Station. We have many different partner nations that contribute to the research that goes on up there. And it's going to continue to be that way as we're doing research on orbit. Do you think that there needs to be a standardization across the industry, just to kind of foster growth? And if so, how can that standardization be fostered?
Yes, absolutely. International cooperation is essential. For example, in the aviation industry, if the aviation industry wasn't standardized in the sense that when we fly to another country, we can reasonably expect that the same procedures are going to be very similar to what we find here in the United States. It's essential for safety. Yep. Same thing has to occur in space, in the way we design our spacecraft, in the way we operate our spacecraft, in the way we deorbit our spacecraft and travel to other interplanetary structures. That standardization is required mainly for safety reasons, but really to implement those best practices that are understood by a wide range of professionals that are really going to get us to the next phase in our pursuits in outer space. If we're going to become a truly interplanetary species, it's not just going to be the United States. It's not just going to be China or Europe or Russia. It's going to truly be a cooperative inter-nation or multi-nation approach to getting us to Mars, and really be successful on other planets.
Great. Yeah, that was a great way to kind of wrap up this discussion. I really appreciate your time, Miguel. Thanks for taking the time to share your insights into this very exciting topic. And for more info, please visit our website at the bottom of the screen. And we look forward to the next live stream that we do. So we will hopefully see you there. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.